Live from the Washington, D.C. area, all empowered citizens need to know about intelligent use of resources, smart governance, inclusive communities, smart industry, and healthy, thriving urbanization. This is Smart Sustainability, the TV talk about shaping a sustainable future in the digital age with Nicolette DeVidar.
The clock is ticking. Forests are going away. Oceans are depleted and filled with plastics instead. The atmosphere is heating up. We have a mass extinction projected at 1 million species gone within the next 2 decades. A loss of biodiversity, which is not only heartbreaking, it leads to our own extinction if we don't start getting ahead of the curve. And this is not rocket science. What we've been doing to the planet is outrageous in simple terms. Now, how is environmental sustainability everyone's task? And what all goes in there? Our topic tonight. Good evening, I'm Nicolette DeVidar. Today is Mother's Day, so to all moms out there, a happy and blessed Mother's Day. It's a special day indeed. Mothers have a very special role. They're life bearers, life givers, and life bringers, pure expression of creativity. Having our show on Mother's Day is a very special day to talk about Mother Earth. And I personally feel very strongly about this because there is a link between mothers and Mother Earth, a correlation of how we honor and respect mothers to how we treat and honor Mother Earth. A wise Jewish Hasidic teacher named Friedrich Weinrib once said, "The mother is the measurement of the world." So, in a way, how we look at moms measures the state of the world. Big words. And it starts with the word, indeed. Remember, in the beginning was the word. So let's start with that. The Hebrew word for mother, Ima, is written like Ama, which means the L as a measurement. The L is the means of measurement in the Bible. God measures his house, the world, in L's. Looking at the origin of the word, the mother is the measurement of creation, the world. The world could not exist in the physical without the Heavenly Mother, and as an analogy, none of us could exist without being born through the mother. So in language, the feminine, particularly the mother, plays a vital role. Now, an L cannot be quantified because it can vary in length. Thus, there is a qualitative dimension to it. And anything that has a qualitative dimension entails something hidden, something deep, something inner, which is why the mother has such a deep inner bond and connection, a relationship that we experience within long before we're born. Now, the same can be applied to Mother Earth and our relationship to her. See, mothers love unconditionally. It's the purest form of love in the physical world. A mother gives without expecting anything in return, and she does this with joy and a sense of inner knowing, just like Mother Earth. She gives and gives and gives, grows food for us, reproduces, takes care of us. And because she does it unconditionally, there are people who think anything that's given freely is worthless, and thus they exploit. Treat those poorly who give freely and take it as something for granted instead of something sacred to honor. Except that enough is enough. And when everything is depleted, the mother, just like any other mother, at some point when she had enough, she breaks and balks. Mother Earth is keeping everyone alive, freely, unconditionally, and we treat her like a thing, raping her body, stealing her organs, drowning her in chemicals, giving her no rest, and then complain when she's tired or not producing. Now let me ask you, do you treat your mother like this? Don't you think it's time for Mother Earth to maybe get rid of us? Something to think about. So what can we do to get ahead of the curve? Start supporting and honoring Mother Earth. Yes, everyone can do something. There are no excuses, and we're going to find out about this. So, joining us this evening is Dr. Christopher Puttock. He's chair of the ESRAG, the Environmental Action Group of the Rotary International. He's a botanist with 4 decades experience in environmental conservation and habitat restoration. And he's particularly concerned with the maintenance of ecosystems so they can function naturally and sustainably. We invited Gerald Auger, spiritual leader of the Woodland Cree tribe, though he hasn't joined us yet, but I hope so he still will. And then we have Brian Braginton Smith. He's founder and CEO of Smart Communities and the Lewisbay Research Center, where he focuses on the coastal marine environment impact and our communities and how they're all connected. So welcome all of you on Smart Sustainability.
Thank you.
And I have to give this long intro today because I really think A, it's a special day, and B, I did want to speak a little bit about the connection, because I think if we start seeing Mother Earth actually more like our mother, then my hope is that maybe we all get on with the program and start developing a different relationship with that.
I think that's essential. And I think it's a time that we're seeing, this kind of stuff happening globally, and I think people are realizing that we don't have an endless cornucopia of resources here. That there are finite limits to what is available, to what we can take without giving back. And it would appear that there is definitely something happening that seems quite dynamic. Actually, Chris and I are involved in the Rotary International, and it's a organization.
Hang on. I'm going to get there. I'm going to get there. I want to move forward here a little bit. I think you summed it really up well, Brian, in terms of there are things happening. Dr. Puttock, the environment is in kind of a desperate shape at this point. Give us a little overview, please, in terms of what you see happening right now.
Me?
No, that's for Chris.
So this is for me, I think.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
So let me take this. So what I think is happening right now is we've come to a place in our history where we have to produce a lot of food without biodiversity loss. We have been losing biodiversity for the last 10,000 years. We've been doing that unsustainably. But now we are a population of close to 8 billion people on this planet, and our resources are running low, and we have to do something about that. The second thing I would like to address is that we have to produce a lot of energy these days, and we've been doing that for the last 200 years using fossil fuels. Those fossil fuels have been buried in the earth for millions and millions of years. And we have to do that without producing greenhouse gases. And my third point is we now produce a lot of commodities. And those commodities are largely produced in a linear fashion. So we actually create them, we make them, we use them, and then we have them as waste product. And we have to get out of that. We have to go back to a circular economy, which is what Mother Earth does. It is a circular economy in itself.
Yep.
Everything grows, lives, grows, dies, and returns to the earth, and then the elements that create the new life.
Yeah, and Mother Earth produces zero waste. That's really the key, zero waste, because everything has a purpose. Correct?
That's true.
So we can learn a great deal from that. And we actually had a show on that not too long ago. But that's exactly, so do you think, have we reached tipping point?
With some things, I think we have. So out of Stockholm and Australia, there's produced a document called Planetary Boundaries. And with some parts of the planet, we have passed these boundaries. Production of phosphorus and nitrogen in our airways, waterways, and land. We've gone beyond the number of animals. We're reducing our population of animals and plants dramatically. Our forests are down by about 30% of what they were 10,000 years ago. We've been dramatically reducing the amount of forests that we have, and we've been largely replacing it with farmland. And then when that farmland gets exhausted, it becomes a wasteland. And so we're with those two things in particular, those chemicals that I mentioned, and also with biodiversity, we have certainly pushed past the boundaries that should be there to sustain us.
Brian, you have something to add? I saw you nodding there.
Yes. Well, the sad fact is that our society has been based on consumption and basically a single-use sort of mentality, and as Chris had said, we're at about 8 billion. We're heading for 10 billion. The simple fact is that the analysis that I've seen indicates that the planet as a natural ecosystem could probably support about 1.5 to 2 billion people. So with our intensive farming and all the stuff that we do in our technology, we're able to survive on a planet that without that interventional technological evolution, we wouldn't be where we are today. But now we're reaching the point, and Chris really kind of put the nail on the head, where those things, CO2 in the atmosphere, actually nitrogen, nitrous, different compounds are really problematic as it relates to the coastal oceans. Phosphorus, similar, fresh water, and actually, the bottom line is that we have to make an abrupt pivot, and that's really what we're talking about. Is if you understand the science, and you look at it in the stark reality of sort of it's the truth, then the ultimate fact is that it's today that we have to make this change, because the signs are all there with what's going on with the warming of the oceans, with the warming of the atmosphere, with the land use characteristics, with just us. Just the stuff that we need to eat is such a problem. So that's where this whole you might call it a consciousness. People are starting to get the message and starting to feel that connection, and realizing that it's a sense of responsibility, I think. And responsibility, the thing about responsibility is if you don't take that responsibility, then you're going to end up being impacted by conscience, because at some point you have to realize that we're making an impact with everything that we do, and that it's our responsibility to start to change what we're doing and think about the future, because if we don't, there's not going to be one. And I hate to put it bluntly like that, but
but everybody knows that, and very few are doing something about this. It's almost like you're talking to a wall. So my question is, why then, if the science is there, if it's on the wall, if we know all the things that are happening now, and we actually did have some slides on that as well, that maybe we can show, why are we still? We talk about this, but there's still this huge disconnect, and there's relatively few people that are really acting on it. Why? What are you seeing?
To my mind, I believe that people have been deadened because of the amount of information that's out there. There's unfortunately, in many cases, more disinformation than there is real information, and folks get so overloaded with it that they just are more focused on the living every day and getting by, and then that becomes the primary focus. You can't, survival, and that's really the problem. Is people tend to be, today, the moment, not looking at the future, and taking the responsibility to prepare for it. That's basically the way that I see it, and I can say that because I've been doing this for the better part of 40 years, and Nicolette, like you said, you look around and you kind of ask yourself, doesn't everybody see this? Doesn't everybody see what's going on
No, because
here?
last time when I was out, and it just when I took the dog out this morning, I still see a lot of plastic bottles thrown out, cans thrown out in the water. People can't even pick up their trash. What's so difficult about understanding that?
Well, it up until now, I'd say that the biggest problem is that we could get away with it. But the simple fact is that now, this is what I do. The thing that's really got me now is that we no longer have the luxury of being able to kick that can down the road, and we need to deal with it now.
So, Dr. Puttock, what do you see as the most dangerous thing we're currently doing when you look at the biodiversity, when you look at all the things that are happening? And I want to get after this a little bit into how this is all interconnected, but what do you see right now as the most dangerous and maybe oblivious thing we as humans are doing to Mother Earth, to the planet?
Okay, so I see this as the way we produce energy. I mentioned it before, we are burning this fossil fuel that we have. We're digging it out of the ground and burning it up at a rate thousands, hundreds of thousands of times faster than it was created. So the world was storing this energy in the earth for millions, literally millions of years, hundreds of millions of years. And we've dug it up and we've been using it so rapidly in the last 200 years that the world has been overheating. We have been expecting the world to be able to do something with that heat. Yes, some of it does escape into space, but a lot of it gets absorbed by the sea, as Brian mentioned, by the land. We don't appreciate that the land is actually absorbing heat as well, and it's getting heated as well as the atmosphere. And so all of this energy that we're releasing so rapidly is what is the major cause. So we just have to get off of fossil fuels.
So the energy, so the energy, that has a lot to do, of course, with the lifestyle. It has a lot to do with how we all live. It has a lot to do with our own footprint. Is that the starting point?
So I see the starting point for everybody would be to, as the first thing, just do a pledge. Say, I will look at my footprint, my carbon footprint and my waste footprint, and see how much I'm producing. And then once you've done that, you'll have some incentive. The why is there. Why should I do something about this? Because if I'm going to survive, I have to do something. Personally, I have to do something about this and make a change.
So the first thing is a pledge to make a change, and then the pledge is to look at your footprint. Let's start with the energy footprint first. Do you have some steps that you would share with our viewers and our audience in terms of how can you assess your footprint? Everybody says assess your footprint, but it's like, how do you assess it?
Well, on the web now, there are many different calculators available, carbon calculators. There's a really good one from Europe. But you can just go on the web and search for a carbon footprint calculator and you'll find them. And I would say just use any one. Try them out, fill it in, see what your footprint is. And it's probably going to tell you that you're using 2 or 3 or 4 times as much as the Earth can carry if everybody was living like you are on the planet. And so just thinking about that will give you some ideas of what you can possibly do. There are lots of things out there. There's like, you can think about what food you're eating. If you reduce the amount of meat you're eating, you could actually reduce your carbon footprint considerably. If you're using a vehicle that uses petrol, you could get to an electrical vehicle or even a hybrid and reduce your footprint there. You can plant trees rather than cutting down trees. We humans have been cutting down 15.3 billion trees a year in excess of what we have, and we're not putting them back. and they are sucking the carbon out of the air for us, and now it's not doing that. So there are many different things that we could actually do to reduce our carbon footprint or mitigate for the footprint that we have.
Yeah. And then how would you say to assess your waste? I think that's a real big one. Well, I assess it by looking at the trash we have to take out for packaging every day, which is unbelievably. How would we assess our waste?
So I would say, look to a product that you know is going to last for a longer period of time. Look for a product that isn't going to be a waste product within a short period. Like, no, don't use single-use plastic bags. Use something that's going to last a year or 2 or 3. Buy commodities that you think are going to last. Back in the 1940s and 50s, we actually did that. We actually had products that would last a little bit longer. Your vehicle would last more than 3 to 10 years. It would last 20 to 50 years. But,
because I think quality at that point still mattered, and people knew what quality was. They were looking for quality, and they were willing to pay for quality. But if you look at this today, very few people, I think, could even tell the difference between something that's a real fabric to something that's a real silk to polyester, for example, just to use an example. Something that is a piece that's done to last 100 years versus something that's done, to throw it out in a year. So I think there's also the quality aspect that maybe we have totally lost an appreciation for and can't even pay. I mean, many of those who used to produce quality items cannot do so anymore because they went bust with the competition that came out of Asia and these other cheap production countries.
When you're producing cheap goods, then you're obviously going to undercut everybody else. And that's just the way it is. When the rest of the world catches up with the United States, then we're going to be in serious trouble because everybody's going to be wanting to pay a little for everything, and yet nobody's going to be making it for that little price. So the price of goods will go up.
Yeah, but I think something is going to happen way before that. Brian, what do you think?
Well, to be honest, the transition back to the milk ban. I mean, for instance, back like Chris had mentioned, 50s and 60s, you had glass bottles, and they came and replaced them, and they brought full milk and they took away the empties. It was something like that. Things like that. The idea of not like the single-use containers, and from an energy standpoint, you got to really start looking at transitioning away from the fossil fuels and looking more towards the renewables. Solar is big today. The things that are happening in that venue are remarkable. And there's a tremendous promise before us, and the ability to be able to truly transition away from fossil fuels and to be able to achieve that net zero goal. By just focusing on available technology. And instead of trying to get away with everything you can for the least you can, sort of focusing on the things that are going to really get us to where we've got to go, it's not that much more expensive, but it does require a different mindset. And I think that's really one of the things that's most important today, is that we do have to transition to that new mindset. We have to be looking at what is our aggregate impact, and how do we make this happen. It's not a question of whether or not the technology is available. It's the future is here. It's just not very well distributed yet, and that's really what the issue is. I look at it from a standpoint of everything from the folks that we go to for advice to the industries that we depend on for those utility services. The problem is still that in many places, you can't get there from here because the folks that are providing the services are still looking at things through that 20th or 19th century lens. And unfortunately, we run out of time. There are many places where people have been talking about change and talking about, sort of doing something about things. Like I said, it's been 40 years since, I started working on offshore wind off the Cape and recycling water. And yet, these are things that anybody can do, but people don't do it. And it confuses me. I don't understand why folks are not more focused on trying to achieve the best that we can do as a society, rather than trying to get away with what we can get away with. And the idea of producing and then throwing away as much as you can just doesn't make any sense. That circular economic dynamic is critical.
So if we had to bring it down and say why now, Dr. Puttock, what would you say are just numbers that or some realities that we simply can no longer overlook? Why now? Why is it everyone's task and everyone's responsibility, and why can we not delay for another moment?
Well, certainly we have to reduce our consumption straight away. We have to look at what we're using in fossil fuels. We have to look at the way we do our agriculture. There are so many places. I would just like to go back just a second to when you were just talking about societies before, and I would just like to remind everybody there's a really good book by Jared Diamond called Collapse, where he investigates some societies that went through a collapse because of their use of resources. The way they use resources. And we are in exactly the same position as a whole world. We are in a position of collapse. And if we don't do something about it quickly, those societies that did that, react to their collapse quickly enough, actually survived and moved forward. Those that didn't perished, like those on Easter Island. And we all know the story of the big rock carvings there, and there was no way of those people getting off that island after they'd used all their resources up. They were just stuck there and they died. So, but there are good examples that Jared Diamond uses, and we know what will happen. We just have to take the bit and start dealing with the issues that we have.
Yeah. Can we speak for a moment about the interconnections? Because I think, yes, we know something needs to happen, but I think for a lot of people, it still seems something that's far, far away. But when you look at, for example, the speed of the extinction of species, I mean, we're talking up to 1 million species gone in 20 years. That's unbelievable. And what would that do to our ability, to grow food and things like that? Can you talk a little bit about that and lay it out for viewers?
Right. So the biodiversity loss that we may experience in the next 30 years has been estimated between 25,000 and 1 million. The range is really broad. As far as climate change, right now we only know one species that's gone extinct that we know of, that we can prove that has gone extinct through climate change. So the climate change that we will experience is probably going to remove about 8% of the species that we have. The rest of it is going to be caused by our use of the land and the seas, not through climate change directly. But the majority of the loss is actually through our management of our resources.
If I can put something in there, just to clarify or to reinforce what you just said, Chris. Just one example is the fact that our global fisheries, 16 of the 19 global fisheries are in a state of economic collapse. And from a standpoint of the future of protein, that's viewed as being, sort of the major source, because as we've discussed here already, the use of the land and the methodologies that we practice with just aren't working. And if you add to that, just one particular location that is of a real serious concern for me is an area of the North Atlantic off of Greenland, and that is called the North Atlantic Oscillation. And basically, what it does is it's sort of one of the major controlling points for the global climate, and that's showing impacts and could potentially be in a state of dynamic change. And if that shifts, then the Gulf Stream changes, and the climate in Europe and North America is going to go through some radical change. And as Chris was saying, these things happen, and there are species that can migrate and survive, and then there are other species that can't, and they're doomed. And we're at the point where we're seeing these things happening. And the problem is that folks aren't really listening. In some cases, there's a lot of groups and there's a lot of activity that you'll see. As a matter of fact, what Chris and I are involved in with Rotary International, that's a 100-year-old organization that's transitioning and pivoting to deal with climate change and to deal with this national issue. I mean, international.
And I want to talk about this because that brings us right to ESRAG. And you're trying to leverage within the Rotary International, you're trying to leverage actually your members to really do something about this. Let's talk about it, because there are things we can do, and it doesn't matter where you are, what you're doing, and so on. Everyone can join. Tell us a little bit about the initiative. What's the main focus, and what's happening right now? How are you going to go about that?
So the Environmental Sustainability Rotary Action Group is now an organization that's worldwide. We have we've been growing by about 25 members a week around the world. We're now in about 75 countries, and we have members that are really concerned about all aspects of what we are seeing as the environment, and that includes the world systems, as we mentioned before, the chemistry that we've been altering, the energy that we've been producing, the food that we've been producing, even to the resilience that we have against the animals and plants that are out there. I mean, so the diseases that hop out of the animal world, they're all part of the environment. And we have people across the whole of Rotary that are dealing with different aspects of this. We're very much concerned about everything that's involved with the environment.
Yeah, and we actually put the slide up that you sent us, so it shows a little bit about all the issues you're dealing with: invasive species, revegetation, pollinators, aquaponics, sustainable food production, urban greening. It's a whole range of things that you had listed on there, which I think the focus is. Tell us a bit how people can get engaged. So they're all different projects, right?
So within Rotary, we have clubs. We have something like 35,000 Rotary clubs around the world. And each one of those Rotary clubs will be doing several to a dozen different projects every year, somewhere in their neighborhoods or even more distant lands. Joining up with other clubs, doing projects. So Rotarians are doing projects on a vast area of things, and a lot of them now turning to work on the environment. Rotary is for the last 100 years been largely engaged with humanitarian issues, but really the first environmental project that Rotary did was its very first project in Chicago, which was basically giving latrines in Chicago so that people had somewhere to go to the toilet when they were going, because there's nowhere to go. So the Rotary has been engaged in some way with cleaning up the environment for a very long period of time, making it, restoring it in some ways or another, to get back to something that is more like what it was before we were here.
Now,
So,
are all the initiatives tied to the Sustainable Development Goals, to one of the 17 of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals?
So now they are. So Rotary International, through its revision of its actions in 2010, was largely controlled with 6 areas of focus, to do with health and water and the economic development and peace and conflict resolution and basic education. And so we saw that the 17 developmental goals were not all being covered. And so what Rotary has now done is now recognizing all of the 17 sustainable development goals within its within what it wants to do as an organization. So the environment has filled the gap with the goals that we weren't covering well before.
Let's talk about some of the key projects. Brian, you want to pick this up? I believe you're also a member, so what are some of the key projects that you find personally really super interesting?
Well, we're working on. I'm a member of the Yarmouth Rotary Club here on the Cape, and actually we've got a lot of different things going on. We're members of the Monarch Sister Schools program, where we're creating pollinator gardens, and that's a project that actually is looking at trying to establish pollinator gardens along the entire flyway, the Eastern Flyway, for the monarch butterfly, in order to be able to help to replenish that species. We're also working on some pretty amazing stuff. We're working on a net zero campus for a regional school system to create a educational platform for students to be able to learn about all this stuff we're talking about, so that as they grow up, they're going to be able to understand all the details and the importance of what we're talking about, and prepare them for that future, because it's going to be a challenge. And speaking of education, one of the projects that we've been involved in for a very long time is the Mokta School in India. So actually, what we've done is our club has sponsored the construction of a school for orphan girls in India, and that school, it went from being sort of a very basic hovel kind of a thing, to now where students are now going on to higher education and graduating engineers and folks that are contributing to the world, and that's in an area that poverty, it's one of those areas in the world where things are very, very challenged. And as Chris was saying, that's one of the benefits of Rotary is that we're not just talking about sort of do good things in the developed world, which is we do, but we've got very active programs which are working in many of the countries that are now just starting to get into development, and those are critically important areas to bring the resources and to help to facilitate the transition. Everything is connected, and if those people aren't connected, it's a problem.
If you had to pick, let's say, the 5 most pressing issues, Dr. Puttock, in terms of what we need to focus on right now, what would those be? Where would you say these are areas where we need projects? And I know every project is important, but if you had to look at, like, what are the hot spots right now? What are the 5 most pressing issues that really cannot wait any longer, that we need to put our focus on right now? What would those be?
Okay, so I think one is revegetation. We've touched on that with pollinator gardens and so planting trees, sequestering carbon through that. That also improves our pollinators, and the pollinators will produce more food for us because they're fertilizing our fruit trees, and so there's that. Removing invasive species is so tied in there as well, because if the invasive species are actually obliterating the places where our native trees and shrubs and therefore our pollinators can be. So all of that is important. I think growing plants locally is very important, because then you don't have the transport costs that are associated with moving our produce across the country and around the world even. Then there's some things we can do with recycling. There's a lot of waste that goes on within our production. When we lose about 30% of our production when it is, because it's moving so far to get to us. We then eat about 40%, and then we waste the other 30%. And then just in the storage, let me just turn over to the storage of products, because they need refrigerants. And the refrigerants that we've been using are CFCs and HCFCs, and these are highly potent greenhouse gases, between 100 to 10,000 times more potent than carbon dioxide. And so our refrigerators in supermarkets, not so much the ones in our households and the ones in cars, but in our supermarkets often leak, and they're larger and they leak a lot of these CFCs. We need to replace those with more with better chemistry, so that we can stop that waste.
But that basically sounds like we have to really reset and do a complete new setup of basically the entire economy.
Well, there are so many things. Yeah, there's so many things. So virtually everything we can touch on, we can say there's a way of improving that. And we know what it is. We know how to do it. We just don't want to do it cheaply.
Right.
Because the reason we have plastic bottles that are single-use plastic bottles is because they were actually created so that they could be recycled. But there's no value on a plastic bottle by the time it gets to its end point, and therefore it gets thrown away. If we actually valued the plastic that was in the bottle, if we had a way of putting a value on that was more than it is today, then we'd actually be using it and keeping it in the center.
And just so that people know, only 9% of the plastic bottles are recycled at this point. 91% are not.
Right.
That's a big number.
But the material in those plastic bottles could be recycled.
Yes, it could be. But I'm only saying only 9% of plastic bottles are being recycled today. All the rest is trash.
Well, just remember, if you can remember 50 years ago or even less, you would actually get 6 cents, or no, 6 pence, 5 cents or 10 cents per bottle if you returned it.
Yeah. Now, with the Rotary, for example, with ESRAG, let me ask a little bit about how this works for projects. So let's say somebody's watching this evening and they have an idea of a new project which they would like to do. Is there a way where they could reach out and reach you and suggest a certain project that they would like to do, or partner up with Rotary on that one?
So if within Rotary, yes, or the Rotarians and Rotary clubs can approach us and we can help them. That's what a Rotary Action Group is for. We have the expertise within the Rotary Action Group to help Rotary clubs do their projects. If you're not a member of Rotary and you'd like to get involved, then we're always looking for partners. And so our partnerships are growing, but you'll be partnering largely with clubs and within districts. They are looking for partners to actually do the work, because basically it's all the Rotarians that are around the world on the ground that are doing the projects. The Rotary Action Group is here as all the other Rotary Action Groups, and there are 27 of us now, working on different parts of Rotary with the environment. And so we are all working towards helping Rotarians in their clubs and the whole Rotary family to do more and do it more synergistically, working with others to make their projects more effective than they were if they were working by themselves.
Okay, so I just want to bring this up. I see both of you having cats in your living rooms.
Yes, yes.
There's something about Zoom. I don't know what it is, but you know, actually this one showed up in the lab one day. And wouldn't leave. So you know, but you know, what can I say? You know, everything's connected. That's another point. You know, we as humans have a natural affinity for pets and for caring for things. And really, we just have to nurture that. You know, we need to bring that to the surface. You know, as a priority, more so than maybe getting a more shiny car or going up and getting the fanciest, flashiest thing. That's kind of what Rotary is kind of about. Is you know, it's folks that want to do something and want to participate in a way to make the world a better place. And I think that's kind of the thing that's happening right now. You know, if you look at what everybody is now talking about, and you look at all the groups that are active out there, you know, talking about sort of becoming stewards of the planet again. Yep. I mean, this is everything is kind of, I hate to use the term, but aligning, and it's a remarkable time. I mean, it really is a remarkable time to be alive, and I think that what needs to happen is everybody has to sort of say, hey, wait a minute, I kind of feel that myself. How can we actually get engaged? Because once that all starts to happen, and it will happen, is that we're going to see this transition happen that Chris was talking about. And there's another group that's out there called Rethink X, which is a deep think tank, do a lot of DoD work and stuff like that. And they came out with a publication called Rethinking Humanity. And what they've done is analyze evolutionary progress over time, over the history of humankind. And they've been able to come up with indicators that show when one of these events is going to happen. And according to their calculations and their research, we're in one right now. And it's pretty exciting because it could end up being, doing exactly what Chris was talking about, where we're going to transition out of that fossil fuel reality and we're transitioning into a new reality.
Oh, I think this is actually already on the cusp, because I think there's a lot of things happening where you have more people and also industry get more engaged in the circular economy, not just the circular economy, but also rethinking consumption entirely, production, the whole product cycle. So I think there is actually a lot happening. You also see this a lot happening in universities, for example, where they focus more on centers in terms of how can we change the way we produce, the way we consume, and see the whole product cycle, including what we're going to do at the end with this as one whole. I think one key that really would help us shift and get on this a little faster is if we change the relationship we have with the earth, with the planet, and with every living organism that's on there. Because as I said in the intro, I think we're still seeing, here's us, and then there is nature and there is earth, and we see it as a thing. So what do you do with a thing? If we talk about it as a resource, resources you use, you exploit, and then you discard. There is a disposable element to it. But a living organism isn't something to dispose. So once we start looking at Earth and nature actually as a living organism and understand more the relationship that we have in relation to that everything that's outside of what you see is also actually in a part of you inside, and that it is all interconnected, then maybe we get in the curve a little faster and don't have quite these difficulties in hanging on to something that we really should have let go of a long time ago. Do you see this differently?
So if I can just say something, when this morning there was a program, we were talking about cats just a moment ago, and in the third part of Freakonomics Radio, the program that's on the local radio station here, they were talking about curiosity and how curiosity killed the cat. And the interesting thing is that is the why. Why the curiosity is the why we do something. That the what captures our imagination, and I think that's what's lost from a lot of people. That whatever that spark is that really captures our imagination, and the importance of that is when you start asking why is it so, then you start to think about the reality that you're in. And you start to see the pieces all fit together. And yes, you get back to what Mother Earth is, and you see the reality that's around you. So often we're just in the what, the where, and the how.
And the how, that's right.
And we've gone past the initial curiosity that we had to. I guess some of us still have it. Why is it so? Yes. And that's what we need to be asking. And that's what. So when Steve Jobs created the computers that he did, the Apple computer, he didn't just make a computer. He invented something that was, why is this so good? You know, it was the why that actually brought people into that thing was so different from anything else before.
Yeah, and actually, I do want to add something also for our viewers on this why thing, because I think there is a tendency generally that we shy away from asking why sometimes because we feel that it might be intrusive on someone or on something if we ask the why question. But when you really look at it, when we detach from things and really ask like a kid, why is this happening? We usually get the authentic answer that we're looking for and can go much deeper. And I think that's something that would contribute significantly to explore and discover the world around us, like a kid with the why question. Why is this? Remember when you had all the kids, and since it's Mother's Day today, how often do the kids ask, why is this?
Yeah, and that's creativity and ingenuity.
Yeah, there's no wrong answer. You know, when you ask the question why for a kid, there's no wrong answer. He's always or she's always looking for the answer to the question. And as soon as you say that's not important, then you're sort of stopping them from asking that why question anymore. They're moving away. That's not a question that they want to be asking. But it's really so important to know why things are there. Why are we doing what we're doing?
Exactly. Now, we got a few minutes left. I want to talk a little bit about the impact of some of the projects you're doing. Are we seeing some results and some impact already on some of the projects you've been working on in ESRAG?
Well, certainly with tree planting projects, when you're planting 4.5 million trees just 4 years ago, and that project is continuing. And so we planted one tree for every Rotarian. There are 1.2 million Rotarians, but they couldn't stop with just one. They planted around about 3 or 4 for each person. But we actually need to do more than that. We need to do that every year and keep that project going. And it certainly is making an impact. With the pollinator project across America, we've now got something like 30 projects here just in the local DC area. We have at least 30 to 50 pollinator projects across down the center part of the Monarch Flyway. We now have trees being planted in Michoacan, where the monarch butterfly goes. So just even in this one project, we've had a lot of success. Certainly, we've had some success with the collection of freon. The freon that's been basically kept away. It was declared that it has to be destroyed back in 1985 because it was killing our ozone layer. Now that has that is still being stored away, and we just need to collect that, and that is happening around America right now, but it's all around the world as well.
Brian, you got something to add?
Well, to tell you the truth, I was just kind of mind was wandering there a bit because I was thinking about the fact that somebody that I hold in one of those special places asked, some people ask why, and others ask why not, and that's kind of that's one of my driving forces is yes, I tend to always ask the why, why are they doing that? Yep. And then if you can think of a better way, then why not do the better way? Yep. In a lot of cases, what ends up happening is that we tend to stay with what's been done. And that's a problem because it keeps you in the rut.
Yes, it does.
But it's the whole status quo. Don't buck the system.
Yep.
And in many ways, we were talking about education earlier, and I think that's one of the facets of education that's really starting to make a transition.
We hope
people
so.
Realizing that
we're almost out of time, so I do want to give you a few seconds to talk about how can people. Are you going to invite other members to become part of the ESRAG? What would you want to say? It's got to be quick.
Okay, well, everybody can become a member of ESRAG because you don't have to be a Rotarian to become a member of ESRAG. So
on that note, thank you so much for being with us tonight. Thank you so much for watching. We are going to end tonight actually with a little tribute to mothers, and we have pictures of moms from crew members that we do want to show as a tribute to all moms out there. You have a good night. We see you next week.